You how to do a paste into, correct? That was the last thing we were about to get to before the bell. So I'm just going to go through these last few things really fast. So please, you need to be paying attention and bear with me. Okay. A paste into is a way to select an area and create what's kind of called like a layer mask, where you can almost like cutting a hole into a layer so that only that little opening that you create will display any imagery, and the rest of it will be masked off. And this can be helpful, like let's say you're doing a box and you have an image for that you want to use for a background instead of a color fill or something. Um, and you basically want to make it take up the entire thing. Now, one way to do it is to just drag it in. So let's say we have this Spider-Man image here. Let me revert it. I think it's already reverted. Okay, good. All right. So let's say I want to take this Spider-Man image and make it cover the entire side of this box. Now I could just drag it over in the standard way, but the problem with that is if I then go to scale it up, edit, transform, scale, then I'm basically trying to see where these edges meet up, see how it overlaps and hangs over. Then I've got to try to take the opacity of the layer down so I can see through it, and then select and delete these parts. It's just a convoluted way of doing it. It's not very efficient. So the alternative is to do a paste into. I'm seeing lots of people not paying attention. What's going on? Why aren't you just watching me? I'm serious. Like, is there something going on over there I need to know about, or do you need help with something, or what? All right, just if your computer's not working, just leave it be for now and watch this. All right. So instead of doing it this way, where you're trying to cut the image to fit the space it's in, instead, go back to your template layer, which, as you recall, we said should always be blank. Make your selection with the magic wand. Now go to your image and do Control A. Select all. That selects the entire image. Then do Control C. That copies the selection to the clipboard. Now, when you go back to your template, instead of simply pasting like normal, go to Edit, Paste Special, Paste Into. Just like that. And as you can see, it's going to place that image on the middle. And at a glance, it looks like it did before. But here's the difference. Now when I move this off to the side, it has masked off that area. So now when I go back to Edit, Transform, Scale, and I bring this up, it's staying within the confines of my little mask that I made. All right, and I can still edit it and scale it and do whatever I need to do. And I'm not even saying that this image would even be good for this. It's not. But see, now I can have this in there and not have to cut it to fit. All right. So this brings me to an important point that I want to talk about. And I'll show you some examples of this. People will use this technique, this paste into technique, to basically take a really cool image from Google and just stick it on the side of their box put a little McDonald's logo on it and then consider themselves done. All right. If you do that, you haven't designed a thing. You haven't used your brain at all. All you've done is take someone else's art and stuck it on the side of a box. So I would ask that, you be careful. Now, if you had made this yourself, like found an image of Spider-Man swinging and found an image of like the ocean and some buildings, and you had created that yourself using individual assets, then that would be different. That would count as something that you designed, even if you didn't generate the assets yourself. Okay? But if you're just taking fully developed images and just sticking them on a box, that's not really challenging. That's not really worthwhile. So I would just ask that when you do this, you're making a real attempt to gather images and assets and arrange them and design them in a way that is you actually thinking about and using those elements and principles of design, and not just grabbing random images and sticking them on a template. Does that make sense? I always struggle trying to explain that distinction to people. Do you guys understand what I mean? Okay. So I'm just a little caveat that I have to tell everybody, because every year it never fails. I'll have people on the second day who say they're done with their box, and I look at their box and it's because they just did this. It's like, well, I got all four sides covered. That's all I need to do. No, that's not all you need to do. You've got to actually design it yourself. Tell me why you made the choices you made. Tell me why it's a good design. You're not just sticking pictures on a template. Okay. So that's paste into. Everything else on the edit menu we've already gone over, the transformations, all that stuff. Image, we'll do image adjustments real quick. There's only a few things in image that you need to know. Mode. You may bring an image into Photoshop and find that you can't edit it because it'll tell you it's indexed color or some other kind of a weird thing. If that happens to you, what you should do is go to image mode right here and make sure it's RGB color. If it's not RGB color, switch it to that, and then you should be able to edit it. But there are a lot of images that you can't really do anything with unless they are RGB color. So just switch them over. Okay. Now adjustments. You don't have to know all these, but there's a few that are helpful. All right. Adjustments are basically ways to improve the brightness or color quality of an image. And these are mostly used for photographs, all right, because Photoshop is really more of a photography tool than it is a design tool, but it's really can be used for both. So there are certain things on here that work better for like photographs, and there are some things that work better for, handmade designs and artwork. Now, brightness contrast is pretty straightforward. You can either change the brightness, see that, of an image. The contrast is the range between light and dark colors and values. So if you bump up the contrast, you're going to have brighter brights and darker darks. If you lessen the contrast, it's going to kind of bring everything to a more even value. And brightness is just the overall brightness of the image, okay? Now, you can either use these sliders, or on every one of these things I'm going to show you, there's an auto button. if you click on the auto button, that will be Photoshop kind of making a decision for you as far as what it thinks it needs. So you can always try the auto and see what it does, and then if you don't agree with it, you can undo it and do your own thing. Now, another way to do brightness contrast that I prefer, it's a little more technical, is levels. All right, when you click on levels, it'll bring up this crazy looking graph called a histogram. And the histogram is just there to show you, it's kind of like a tracking of all the dark and light pixels in an image. And you'll have three little slider triangles here, a dark one, a gray one, and a white one. If I slide the dark over, it's starting to make all the pixels darker, especially once it passes that little peak there. So if you are adjusting the levels, try not to go past the first big peak. Otherwise, you're going to see here get where that's just too washed out. It looks bad. So if you're going to adjust levels, just do it like just to there, just where it starts to rise up. And that's about as good as you'll get. Or again, you can hit the auto button and it will kind of do the work for you within a certain range. But I like levels better than brightness contrast because you get a little more control over it. All right, so that's levels. The next one, curves and exposure, don't worry about those. Those are more for photography. They're super technical. Don't need to worry about it. Vibrance is about the fullness of color and the saturation levels in an image. So if I slide the vibrance to the right, you can't really tell too much because it's already a pretty bright image. But if I slide it to the left, you can tell a difference. See how dim the colors look? They're kind of toned down and neutralized. So they're not as vibrant, hence the word vibrance. Now, saturation refers to the intensity of the color. If I slide this all the way to the left, it basically becomes a grayscale image. If I go all the way to the left, then we get, super saturated, which you can't tell too much on that screen, but back here on my computer, it looks really, it's like the colors are really popping and not in a good way. So if you have a part of an image or an image that maybe you could intensify the colors a little bit more, use vibrance and saturation. Next up, hue saturation. This also has a saturation slider on it. But the hue is something that, if you slide it around, it just changes the color range from blues to yellows to reds to purples. All right. This would probably only be useful to you, like, I don't know that it really would be useful to you on this assignment. You could maybe select part of an image, like let's say you were doing a spot the difference kind of activity on your box. You got the quick selection tool, and you just selected a little section of the image, and then you went into to hue saturation, and then maybe changed the colors a little bit or something, just slightly. And that could be like one of the things, I don't know. You might even be able to tell from that, but that's what that does. Color balance is pretty helpful. This is where, like, let's say you have some photos and they have maybe too much of a blue tinge to them because of the lighting. Maybe you took them outdoors or something and you were in the shade, and all the pictures have kind of a bluish hue or a yellowish hue. You can go in with this and adjust the sliders and change the kind of tone. So that's selected. I think I do. The color fields a little bit. So again, you might not be able to tell too much on the projector, but if I take this and slide it away from the reds, this is starting to look a little more natural to me now, at least back here, because this is a very red orangey kind of an image. So anything that I can do to slide this away from the warmer colors and go towards the cooler colors, it's going to cool down the feel of that image. And I can adjust the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights. See, that's now we're getting into, it's starting to look purpley because I'm pushing up the blues. All right. So sometimes it's helpful, but not completely necessary, but it's good to know what it does. All right. And that's really it for this. You don't need to know these other ones very much. Black and white photo filter, don't worry about it. Desaturate basically just takes all the color information out and makes it a grayscale. Okay. Layer. We've been over most of these already. And remember, this information is duplicated. It's here on this pull down menu, but it's also over here on this menu. I don't want to export anything, sorry. All right, right there. So you got new layer, duplicate layer, delete hidden layers. A hidden layer is basically a layer that you have turned off. So even though it's still part of the image, it's still taking up room, it's still taking up memory. All right, so if you turn off a layer and you don't need it, then you may as well just delete it because you're just taking up memory. Okay. You don't need to worry about these so much. You can export a layer as a certain thing if you need to. You can group your layers together. There are two types of designers I've found, people that are very organized and group all their layers into folders and everything is organized. And then you've got people like me that just have, a file that has like 200 layers on it and half of them aren't named and it looks really horrible. And I don't recommend anyone work that way, but that's kind of how I do things, sadly. So don't be like me. And then down here, you've got blending options and that sort of a thing. And then you've got your merge, merge down, merge visible. So if you have lots of layers separate and you find later on that you want to consolidate them, you can go to merge down or merge visible, and you can take certain layers and combine them. All right, and that helps to cut down the number of layers you have. So for example, let's turn on these two layers. All right, layer 2 and layer 3 right now are separate layers. Okay, these two are separate. If I turn them off and on, you see they're separate. If I go to layer 2 and right click and say merge down, then I hit apply. Now see, these are on the same layer because I merged them. I can always undo that if I want to, but there you go. All right. We did the type tool yesterday, right? I believe. Yes, we did. So the type menu is just, you don't really need to know much of this. So I wouldn't worry about it. Later on, we can talk more about that if we need to. Select, we've kind of already done the select menu. Control A is select all. Control D is deselect. We did the select inverse thing where we, had Batman, remember, and I clicked the white background and then inverted the selection, so that's select inverse. And then the only other thing that we need to talk about with select, to remind you, is remember on my computer we did the refine edge thing. On your computer it's called select mask or something like that. So just make a note of, if you want to do the refine edge trick where you're smoothing up the edges of a selection, like you're isolating a figure from a background, On yours is called select and mask. All right. Filters are the one thing we need to go over. Okay. Filters are basically like special effects. Um, and they're just a way to stylize or distort images. And there's a ton of them. And I don't have time to go through them all. So the best way to use layers is to spend a little time just experimenting. But I'll go over the basics. You go to filter, they're basically different types of filters. They're like artistic filters that can make things look like a particular art style or like make it look like something is a painting or a print or a marker drawing. You know what I mean? And then there are filters that are just there to touch things up, like blur and sharpen and that kind of a thing. So if you click on go to filter and go to filter gallery, you will see a whole list of folders: artistic, brushstrokes, distort, sketch, stylize, and texture. All right, each one of these is a different thing. Right now, I've got halftone pattern selected, and it's displaying as purple and black because I have purple and black selected as my foreground and background colors. If I had different colors selected, then this would look different. So over here is where you actually select the filter that you're using, whether it's charcoal or graphic pen, Conte crayon, chrome, etc. Then on the right-hand side, you have sliders that can affect the amount of detail. All right. So the results that you get from a filter are going to depend greatly on the type of photo you're using in the first place or the type of image you're using, among other things, and how these sliders are set. So just realize that. And again, I think filters are probably best used on this assignment as sort of just accents. Like if you're putting lots of filters on stuff, it's just going to be too much. It's going to be overload and your box is just going to be too busy. But like on my Batman box, for example, I would probably use something like halftone pattern, if nothing else, than just to like create a sense of texture on my box. Because halftone pattern is something that's used a lot in old school comic book printing. So if I wanted to give my box a kind of an old comic booky feel, like a Roy Lichtenstein kind of a thing, I would use a filter like this. I think would be very appropriate. All right. Now you don't have to use filters at all. I think they're fun to play around with. So you've got cutouts, you've got plastic wrap, which makes things look like there's saran wrap all over it. I mean, I don't know why you would use that, but there you go. Okay. There's stuff that makes it look like there's texture on it or water or you know you name it, it's there. There's distortion ones, so ocean ripple, right? Again, I don't know why you would ever use that for this, but there you go. You can make things look like they have certain brush strokes. Okay. So that's the artistic filters. Undo that. There we go. Now the other kind of filters are ones that will just kind of give you a blur or a sharpen effect. This is just one called Gaussian blur. Sometimes it's nice. You can also do things like motion blur. Yes. Motion blur makes things look like, it's going in a certain direction, like streaks. Okay. All right. So that's blur. All right. The other one that I use a lot is called Unsharp Mask. And that is a filter that will take a blurry image and make it look a little crisper. You don't want to overdo sharpen. When I do this, I usually set the amount to about no more than 50% and bring the radius up. But I don't really mess with threshold at all. Okay? So if you have an image that looks kind of blurry, it's kind of low res, Unsharp Mask might salvage it. Might. All right. And the only other thing that I'll talk about, I mean, these other menus we've been over, view and window, all that stuff. The final thing is just talking a little more about layers. You guys remember about layer style? You can double click on the layer itself and bring up layer style, and you can do strokes and glows and bevels and all that stuff. You remember that from yesterday? It's also available up here. You can select layer style, or if it's not there, then it's up on this one. Yeah, layer style. But also just keep in mind that you can actually change the opacity of layers and have a really cool effect on stuff. Let me turn on this bat symbol layer. All right, if I kind of want this bat to look like it's in the background, I can take the opacity of the layer and move it back like that. So it kind of looks like it's behind Spider-Man. And then I can go over here to this, and I can select on the Spider-Man layer, get the quick selection tool, select Spider-Man. Then go back to my bat symbol layer and just hit delete. Hide that. Now it kind of looks like that's behind him. Okay. So using opacity of a layer really helps. See, that's it at 100%. Let's push it back a little bit. And also using the, right here where it says normal, you can play with some of these, change it from normal to like overlay or soft light, and see what overlay does. So that still pushes it back, but now it's a little more intense. You can kind of see the clouds behind it a little more. Some of this stuff is just trial and error experimenting, which I don't know how much we'd have time to do, but I'm just showing you what's possible. All right. Now we've got about a little over 10 minutes left. I'm just going to show you some examples of past assignments and kind of give you an idea of what's possible. These are actual student projects from this assignment. Yes. Yes. Yes, these are students made these. Freshmen, sophomores, just like you. So obviously this first one is geared towards little kids, probably a little more girl specific. But hey, if a boy wants to like strawberry shortcake, go for it. I like this design. What I like about it is that she did kind of what I asked. She got individual parts and arranged them in an original design. I mean, no, she didn't draw the animals and the characters, but she cut them out and arranged them and created a new design out of them. Okay, which is what I want you to do. Like she got the clouds and the tree and the girl, and she made a design out of that. What I also like is that she's got some really nice color choices. She's sampled colors from other parts of the box and reused them. So she's unifying, using the color to unify the box with that palette. She's got nice pinks and blues, um, which help things pop a little bit. It's a very pleasant, bright, happy kind of a thing. It's very eye catching. She has activities on all four sides of her box, which is very important. Logo placement makes sense. It's good. You can tell right away what the restaurant is and what the characters are. So if I was a little kid and I'd never seen Strawberry Shortcake before, I feel confident that this would grab my attention, or grab a kid's attention and let them learn more about. It's communicating about the theme in an effective way, which is what design's all about. Okay, so this is A+ work as far as I'm concerned. All right. This box, Wicked, there are some pluses and minuses to this, in my opinion. The pluses are the fact that, I do like that for the most part, she is using this green color as a thematic element, because, the Wicked Witch is green. And I know in the play that's part of the theme of the character. She feels like she's an outsider because she's born with green skin. So I like that part of it. I like some of the imagery that she's chosen. I like this little flying monkey that's peeking, from behind this picture here. Some things I don't. Some things I think that could be stronger on this box. Number one, there's not really an activity on this side of the box. She basically just got the show poster and stuck it on this front of the box, and there's nothing else there. And she did not design this. It's just the design from the poster, from the advertising. All right, so that's something that I do not. I think that could be stronger. But having said that, there's some other parts of this that are nice. I feel like again the designs on all of these could have been pushed a little better. I think that the logo placement here is really bad. Like I don't know why you would put a little McDonald's symbol there in the corner. You know what I mean? Like make it try to integrate it more with other parts. See, there's no real integration of shape here very much. It's just I mean, this looks really cool. This little the way the negative space works, but she didn't do it. That wasn't her. That's someone else doing that. So it's like she can't take credit for this because the designer of the poster did that. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about like plagiarizing and co-opting design. Like, yes, you can stick that there and it looks cool, but it's got nothing to do with what you did. It's someone else designed it and you just put it there. Whereas stuff like this, I feel like she's starting to get it more. She's actually deciding where to put these images and to have this monkey behind here, like she's starting to get it. All right. Avatar, Last Airbender. All right, this is a pretty cool one. Again, I think that the one thing that I don't like about this is that it's very text heavy. There's not enough images on this box, in my opinion. I would have tried to put more visual elements on this side of the box along the sides or behind the word find or something. And in here, I feel like this flat color is kind of bleh. I wish that he had done something to create a little more texture or, have little symbols or little decorative elements to help, further sell the aesthetic feel of the show, if anyone has seen the show. Yeah, it is. But I'm sorry, but if I was a kid, I would look at this. I wouldn't read any of that. It's just a bunch of text on the side of a box. There's no thought really put into that. He just put it there. There's no image. There's no shape. There's just nothing there. It's just print on a in front of a gradient. All right. So you see what I'm saying? Like when I'm saying design, try to think about how can I use other elements and principles to make this look better instead of just pasting print on the side of a box. Anybody can do that. Yes. Yes, anything. All right. I don't like these little logos up on the handle. I think that's stupid. I'm sorry. Sue me. I think that's just dumb to do that, but whatever. He graduated 2 years ago. Good for him, or last year. He was a great student, but I just personally, that's just a personal thing for me. I just think that's Ethan Wagner. Yeah, I think he's a great kid. He did some great work, but I just even back then I was like, God, that's really dumb. Why did you do that? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Um, so again, it's kind of a mixed bag. There are some things I like. There are some things that are. Eh. I like the red and green kind of complementary colors. That's kind of cool. So there's definitely things to like here, but there's also things that could use work. Um, this one is kind of this one kind of makes me grit my teeth a little bit because it's just so the images used on here are just so disparate, and it's like you've got this Lilo and Stitch theme, and there's so much to draw from stylistically from that, and she chooses to just put like a flat blue and white gradient on everything, and it looks like a 5-year-old drew it with these kitty looking clouds that are flat, this flat looking palm tree that's got nothing to do with any, like the styles don't match. And, and this drives me nuts. This whole, hey, I'm just going to stick a black and white photo. Hey, color this. That's to me lazy, but that's just me. So this is okay. It's decent, but it's not great. This is not an A box. This is probably like a B range box. Um, I feel like this feels like some little kid's bulletin board in their room, and they just stuck up random things without thinking about how they're arranged. I like the little flowers, but eh. So this just could be better. Again, really dumb logo placement. Like why would you put it? I just anyway. Okay, it's okay. It's good. It's not great. Like this to me is more what I'm looking for. This is really good. This is okay. This is pretty good. This is fairly good, but this side of the box irritates me. Let's see. I think I've got some more here. We've got a couple minutes left. Um, yeah, let's look at some of these. Okay, let's open it up in photos. Why not? All right, this was an original one that somebody came up with. Safari Fun. All right. Having stretched out art that's not scaled properly, that's a bad thing. There's no activities on these sides of the box. That's a bad thing. In fact, none of these have activities on them. This is the only side that does. This is like there's some interesting things starting to happen here, but I this would get you like a low B or a C, and that's if I'm feeling charitable. All right. I like the concept, but the execution is just not there. Like from Africa to you. I don't know what that means. Like, and I don't know, like, and this the whole idea of safari fun. Like, I don't know about that. Like, if it depends on what kind of safari you mean. If it's a safari where you're killing innocent endangered animals, then no, there's nothing fun about that. I find that offensive. But All right, this is not what I wanted. Okay. This is a cool one. Christina Mancini. She was a great student. Nice bold artwork. I mean, some of the flat colors again. I just feel like that there should be activities on this side as well and this side. I like the aesthetics of it, but design wise, I like the imagery, but the design placement could be better. And there's no activities on two sides of it, so that's bad. All right, how can I scroll? Oh, here we go. And I'm trying to look. This was one that she came up with a lot of the artwork herself. Kind of cool. The fonts are a little eh. This one, no. Look at that. No activity there. Big no. No activity there. That's another no. What? Well, yeah, but okay. Whoopie-doo. Yeah, that's creative, but that's not going to make up for the other stuff. All right, again, horrible, not finished. This is what I'm talking about when I say people just slapping images on the side of a box without thinking. That's what this is right here. Don't ever do that. This is a good one. Up. This was a good one. This was an A box in my opinion. All right, we can look at more of these on Monday. So this weekend, work on your still life paintings. Do sketches for your box. All right? Have a great weekend.